"Melissa, the card isn't working. I can't get home like this. Fix it now," my husband shouted over the phone, stuck at the hotel. When I was in college, I lost my parents in an accident. I had to work several part-time jobs just to pay for school and struggled a lot. To turn things around, I followed a friend's advice and started a business. Even though it was hard, I focused on work, and the company started growing. Now, I'm the vice president and help run the business. While many of my friends were getting married and starting families, I began thinking about my own happiness. When I met my husband, we clicked right away and got married just 4 months later. But after the wedding, he stopped working and said he'd be a stay-at-home husband. I've been asking him to at least work part-time, but he refuses. One day, I noticed my credit card was gone. My husband had taken it to go on a trip with his parents. I tried calling him many times, but he wouldn't answer. When I finally reached him, he said, "Don't bother me while I'm spending time with my family. Something you can't do, understand?" I smiled and replied calmly, knowing that his actions would soon catch up with him. My name is Melissa Rauch. I'm 31 years old and the vice president of Adventure Company. Today, I'm financially stable, but it wasn't always this way. During my time as a student, life was really tough. My parents were killed by a car when I was in school, and that loss turned my world upside down. I had to figure out how to pay for my tuition, and despite scholarships and part-time jobs, it wasn't enough. I was constantly working, attending classes, and barely getting any sleep. One day, my classmate Kyle Walker came to me with an idea. "Melissa, let's start a company together. If we combine your skills and my business sense, we could really succeed." Kyle was well-liked and respected, so even though it was a big challenge, I decided to go for it. I was always worried about what would happen if we failed and how I'd manage my time with all my part-time jobs. But what if we fail? "I'm too busy with work to take on something new," I told Kyle. He smiled warmly, as if he understood my concerns completely. Then I saw a determined look in his eyes. "Don't worry, we'll succeed," he said confidently. His words, full of assurance, gave me comfort, and his energy made even the hardest things seem possible. At that moment, I felt the need to change my life, so I agreed and we started a business while still in university. In the beginning, it was tough. Banks often turned us down for funding, making it hard to get started. Hiring was another big challenge. As a small company, it was difficult to attract talented people. Even though we placed job ads, only a few people applied, and finding the right candidates was hard. But Kyle stayed calm, giving smart advice that helped us build a stronger team. Slowly, our company began to grow. Kyle and I developed a deep trust as we faced these challenges together, and we became strong business partners. As time went on and I turned 31, I realized that I had dedicated almost all my time to work. I didn't regret it. I worked hard to pay for school and support myself, and I'm proud of the company we built from scratch. The business is successful, and after 7 years, we've grown a lot in both employees and revenue. However, as I watched close friends getting married and starting families, I started to feel like my life was only about work. One day after a lunch meeting, I opened up to Kyle about how I was feeling. "Kyle, I've been seeing friends my age getting married, and it's made me think," I said. Kyle was surprised by the sudden topic. "What's this all about?" he asked. "I've been focused only on work since we graduated, but now I'm starting to wonder if that's okay," I explained. "Are you thinking about getting married?" he asked. After listening to me, Kyle thought for a moment and then said, "If you're not happy with how things are, seeking change might be a good idea. Life isn't just about work. That applies to marriage too. If you want more from life, maybe it's time to take the first step." His words made me think more deeply about my life and the path I was on. For the first time, I started considering things outside of work, feeling encouraged by Kyle's advice. I decided to start looking for a partner, and a friend recommended a safe matchmaking app. I signed up right away and began going on dates after work, spending time at restaurants, bars, and movie theaters. After several dates, I met Tyler Main on the 5th one. I was always busy with work and not great at household chores, but Tyler was the opposite. He was really good at cooking and cleaning. He understood my hectic schedule and never got upset if I had to cancel a date. Our relationship moved forward smoothly, and we both thought about marriage from the start. Just 5 months after dating, we decided to get married. But right after the wedding, Tyler surprised me by announcing he was quitting his job to become a stay-at-home husband. I was shocked. What just happened? I asked, confused. Tyler calmly said, "From now on, I'll handle all the chores so you can focus on work." I was stunned. "Why would you make this decision without even talking to me?" I asked, still trying to process everything. Tyler casually explained, "You're making money, so it's fine. If I take care of the house, it'll make things easier for you." I couldn't believe it. Was he planning to rely completely on my income? Even though I was earning, we weren't that well off. "You should at least get a part-time job," I suggested, but no matter how much I tried, he refused. "No, I'm done working for a company. If you're making money, that's enough." I was dumbfounded by how selfish he sounded, but as a newlywed, I didn't want to argue. To make things worse, he also started asking me to send money to his parents. "Family helps each other," he said. "I'm a stay-at-home husband now, so Melissa, I'm counting on you." I wouldn't mind supporting his parents if he had an income, but putting the burden on me felt wrong. What made it harder was that his parents seemed to think I was forcing him to do all the housework. During a meal with them, his mother put down her chopsticks and said, "Melissa, you're making Tyler do all the housework. Poor him. Do you really think this is fair?" Then his father added, "He told us you're not good at housework, but as his wife, shouldn't you try to improve?" I didn't know what Tyler had told them, but clearly, they thought I was the bad guy. That's not true. Tyler chose to be a stay-at-home husband. I protested, but Tyler whispered, "Calm down. Just apologize, and I'll clear things up later." Even though he said he'd explain, I was frustrated that he didn't stand up for me right then. Later, when I asked if he had fixed the misunderstanding, he always brushed it off, saying it didn't matter. I never got the chance to talk to my in-laws. I felt rejected by them and unsupported by my husband, which made me feel hopeless about our marriage. I even started thinking about divorce. Then, when I went to the hospital because of stomach pain, I found out I was pregnant. I felt both surprised and happy, so I rushed home to tell Tyler. "Tyler, I'm pregnant," I told him. "Really? That's great," he said calmly, which confused me. There was no excitement from him. He just sat on the couch, watching TV, like my news didn't matter. The happiness I felt quickly turned to disappointment. His lack of interest hurt me deeply, and I went to my room in tears, wondering if the love we once had was gone. Even with a baby on the way, he didn't seem happy. I realized there might not be a future for us, and the thought of divorce weighed heavily on my mind. But with a baby coming, I couldn't make that choice easily. Could I raise a child alone? I hoped things might change when the baby was born. Maybe Tyler and his family would act differently. Holding on to that hope, I decided to stay in the marriage for now. As time passed, I noticed a large charge on my credit card statement one day. I couldn't find my card in my wallet either. Had I lost it? Was it stolen or used by someone? Worried, I brought it up with Tyler. "Hey, I found a big charge on my card that I don't recognize. Could it be fraud? Should I call the credit card company?" I asked. To my shock, he said, "I used it. It's not fraud, so don't cancel it." Apparently, after quitting his job and running out of savings, he had secretly taken my credit card and started using it without telling me. This, even though I was already giving him money for groceries and household expenses. "Why did you use my card without asking? And what did you buy with so much money?" I asked. "It's my right to spend it on whatever I want. I just need some money for myself," he shot back. "Then get a job and use your own money," I replied. But this was a conversation we'd had many times before. No matter how much I begged or got angry, he refused to work. The man I once thought would help support us was now barely cooking, mostly ordering takeout, and hardly cleaning the house at all. When I complained about the situation, he got angry. "You're the one making the money, so what's the problem? I'm your husband, and I'm doing the housework as a stay-at-home husband. I have the right to at least that," he shouted, then stormed out, saying he was going back to his parents' house. I was filled with anger and sadness over his actions. Aren't families supposed to support each other? I'm pregnant, but I'm starting to doubt how much he cares about our future as a family. I worked hard to build the career and income we have now. Just because we're family doesn't mean he can make big purchases without talking to me first. I took deep breaths, trying to calm down and hold back my tears and frustration. Later that night, he suddenly came back home with his parents. The door flew open, and I stood up in shock. His parents rushed in and immediately started blaming me. "It's because you forced Tyler to do all the housework that he's been neglecting his duties," they accused. "As a woman, you should be doing the cooking, laundry, and cleaning. Don't use work as an excuse to slack off." I was already feeling unwell from the pregnancy, and hearing this made my anger boil over. I had already decided to get a divorce, so I couldn't hold back any longer. "That's not true. Don't act like you know what's going on when you don't," I shouted. "You'll regret it if you keep treating me like this." They looked shocked by how cold I sounded, but I realized there was no point in arguing with them. My husband had misled them, and even when I explained that he wasn't working, they didn't believe me. So I decided to stay quiet. I had a strong feeling they would regret this later, but in that moment, I felt the deep sting of betrayal from the man I once thought would protect me. Then, my mother-in-law pulled out some papers from her bag and slammed them onto the table. "If you don't reflect on your actions, we're demanding a divorce. Sign this and be done with it," she said. I stared at the papers, shocked. I never thought they would bring this to me, especially since I had been planning to ask for a divorce myself. Thinking this might turn into a court battle, I grabbed the pen. My hand was trembling so much that it was hard to hold it, but I forced myself to sign the papers. "There, it's done," I said, my voice cold. My husband and his parents left after that, but I suddenly remembered I forgot to ask for my credit card back. A deep sense of despair washed over me. Then, out of nowhere, a sharp pain shot through my abdomen, far worse than anything I'd ever felt. I collapsed onto the floor. My breathing quickened, and sweat poured from my body. My vision blurred, and the unbearable pain left me numb. I tried to say, "What's happening?" but the words barely left my lips. With each breath, the pain grew worse, and my body felt out of control. I struggled to pull myself across the floor, desperately trying to reach my phone. My fingers shook as I clawed at the floor, moving forward inch by inch with all the strength I had left. The sharp pain threatened to make me pass out. Finally, I managed to make the call and, with a shaky voice, explained the situation. "Help, I'm in severe pain and I'm pregnant." I gave them my address and hung up. The pain didn't stop and my vision got blurrier. I collapsed on the floor, waiting for the ambulance. "Please protect my baby," I prayed, holding on through the agony. I kept telling myself I had to stay strong for my child. I was rushed to the hospital, where I faced the risk of premature labor. The doctor said it was due to stress and overwork, and I was admitted right away. Fear for my baby's safety overwhelmed me, and I must have passed out. After being in a coma for 6 days, I finally woke up in the hospital room. The pain had eased, and my body felt more relaxed. I immediately checked my belly and felt relief that my baby was still there. I took a deep breath, comforted by the quiet room and the soft light coming through the window. As my memories came back, I remembered the terrible pain, the ambulance ride, and the fear of losing consciousness. I was grateful to be safe and alive, but then my thoughts turned to my husband. I needed to contact him. I grabbed my phone and called him, but he didn't pick up. I had given his contact information to the paramedics when I was brought to the hospital, but I hadn't heard from him. I kept trying, and on the 5th call, he finally answered. His voice sounded strange, and the connection was bad. "What do you want at this hour?" he asked. "I was rushed to the hospital for signs of premature labor. It happened after you and your parents left," I said, asking him to bring some things I needed. His response shocked me. "That sounds tough, but I'm overseas right now, so I can't help." "Overseas?" I asked, stunned. "I'm on vacation in Germany, spending time with my parents. Don't bother me. I'm fulfilling my filial duty, something you can't handle," he replied. I was speechless. How could an unemployed man afford an overseas trip? He kept talking about his duty to his parents, so I guessed he must have had some other source of money. With my voice shaking, I simply said, "Got it," and hung up. Afterward, I went to the hospital gift shop, bought some stationery and an envelope, and made a phone call to someone. The next day, my husband called in a panic, saying, "The card's not working. I can't get home like this. Fix it right now," he demanded. I canceled the card. I replied calmly, though inside, I was boiling with anger.
"What?"
"I can't pay for anything." "What are you going to do about it?" he asked, sounding desperate. "That's your problem," I answered firmly. "This isn't just my problem. I'm still your husband," he shot back. I couldn't help but laugh. "What's so funny?" he asked, clearly confused. "Our marriage is almost over. The divorce process is already underway," I said, and his tone suddenly became tearful. "Please, just let me use the card temporarily so I can get home." "I'm begging you," he pleaded, but I felt nothing. "Figure it out on your own. You're no longer my concern," I responded coldly and hung up. 6 days later, my friend and the company president, Kyle, came to visit me. "Don't worry about work. Just focus on resting for now," he said. I smiled and replied, "It's the first time I've done absolutely nothing like this." Just then, the hospital room door burst open. My ex-husband and his parents, fresh from their overseas trip, stormed in. The moment he saw me, my ex-husband yelled, "What have you done?" "I had to borrow money from a friend just to get back home." His mother screamed, "This is unbelievable. How could you put us through this?" His father joined in, shouting, "Our son's carefully planned trip was completely ruined." Their fury exploded in front of Kyle and some people passing by, but I remained calm. "He paid for the trip with my credit card without my knowledge," I said. The mood in the room changed instantly. My in-laws exchanged shocked and confused looks, as if they'd just been struck by lightning. I continued. "Right after we got married, he announced he would be a stay-at-home husband and quit his job, but he's barely been helping with the housework." The room went silent, and I could see the distress on my in-laws' faces.
"What?"
"Tyler isn't working? That can't be true. He told us he had a job," my mother-in-law stammered, her voice shaky and filled with worry. My father-in-law looked at me, his face showing a mix of shock and disappointment. "The truth is, he's been unemployed the whole time, and I've been the one supporting the household," I explained. Hearing this, my in-laws turned to my ex-husband with disbelief in their eyes. They looked betrayed and deeply disappointed. My mother-in-law pressed her lips tightly together, while my father-in-law clenched his fists in anger. My ex-husband couldn't meet their gaze, staring at the floor under their piercing looks. At that moment, Kyle spoke up. "Mr. and Mrs. Maine, I have something important to discuss with you." "I'm the CEO of the company where Melissa works," Kyle began. "Through our conversations, I've learned that Tyler has been unemployed and Melissa has been the one supporting the household financially." As Kyle said this, my in-laws' faces showed shock and disbelief. He calmly handed them his business card and showed them the company's website. They took the card, their hands trembling as they looked at it. The truth was undeniable now, and their expressions turned to astonishment and confusion. "Our company is also a key client for a major project at Mr. Maine Workplace," Kyle continued. "But we cannot continue working with unreliable partners. This can't be happening. What will happen to the project?" "Tyler, how are you going to explain this?" my father-in-law stammered, barely able to speak. He looked crushed. My mother-in-law buried her head in her hands, pale and in disbelief. "How did it come to this?" she murmured. Tyler, now desperate, grabbed my hand tightly. "Melissa, please help me. I want to make things right," he pleaded, his eyes filled with fear and desperation. His hand trembled, but given how he had ignored me and done as he pleased in the past, I wasn't surprised to see him begging now. "It's too late. I can't forgive what you've done, and this is the end," I said firmly, pushing his hand away. "Please help me," he begged, dropping to his knees on the floor. At that moment, Kyle presented some important documents. "Can you still say the same thing after seeing this?" he asked. The papers revealed an investigation Kyle had quietly conducted into Tyler's actions. They showed how Tyler had lied about sending money to his parents and had been recklessly spending my income. "I can't tolerate anyone hurting a valuable business partner," Kyle said, his voice calm but filled with resolve. "I've already spoken with our lawyer. You should prepare to compensate." Kyle delivered this news with a polite but firm smile, leaving my ex-husband and his parents in shock. As I lay in my hospital bed, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and relief for everything Kyle had done for me. Since that day, the stress has lifted. I recovered from the threat of premature labor and eventually gave birth to a healthy baby. My heart is filled with both joy from the birth and the exhaustion of childbirth. Kyle and my colleagues even visited to celebrate, and since being discharged, I've been enjoying peaceful and fulfilling days. I moved into a new apartment that Kyle had arranged for me, thanks to his thoughtful care. We chose a place where my ex-husband and in-laws would never be able to find us, ensuring our privacy and safety. The new apartment is in a quiet area, away from the busy city, surrounded by greenery and peaceful silence. It's the perfect place to enjoy nature, whether for a walk or just to relax. Here, my baby and I are starting a new chapter in our lives. With this fresh start, I feel both excited and nervous, but having supportive people around me has made things much easier. A few weeks have passed since I gave birth, and I'm currently on maternity leave, enjoying peaceful time with my baby. Kyle visits us regularly, bringing essentials and offering words of encouragement. One day, he came by again with new supplies. As he saw us, he asked, "Melissa, how are you feeling? The baby looks healthy, and that's what matters most."
"Thank you, Kyle."
"We've made it through because of your support," I replied, grateful. After inviting him inside, I gently laid the baby in the crib and made him a cup of coffee. Looking slightly serious, Kyle said, "I need to talk to you about your ex-husband and his parents." "Is something wrong?"
I asked.
Kyle explained that he had been keeping an eye on them to make sure we were safe. They sold their house to pay the compensation and are now living in a rundown apartment. "Your ex-father-in-law lost his job, and all four of them are working nonstop," he said, placing some papers on the table. He went on to tell me that my ex-husband is now doing hard labor at a construction site. His laziness from when he was supposed to help with housework is causing him problems at work, and he's often scolded. He's finding it tough to adjust to his new job. Meanwhile, my former mother-in-law is working 2 jobs, as a cashier during the day and on a sandwich production line at night, without any breaks. She's suffering from back pain, but doesn't have the time or money to get treatment. My ex-father-in-law has been looking for a new job, but his age and lack of experience have made it hard. He's now working as a cashier during the day and as a janitor at night. As I listened, a mix of emotions filled me. But more than anything, I realized their struggles were the result of their own choices. I felt a brief moment of sympathy, but it quickly faded. Staying calm, I said, "Well, that's the consequence of them betraying us." Kyle nodded and said, "You're right. Now you're finally free. Let's focus on your happiness and the baby's well-being from here on." I fully agreed with Kyle, and I knew more than ever that my life moving forward would be about me and my child. The struggles and pain of the past were behind me, and I was ready for a fresh start. Afterward, with my lawyer's help, I demanded that my ex-husband and in-laws pay alimony and return the savings they had used without my permission. Even though they claimed they couldn't pay, I wasn't afraid anymore. For my child's future and mine, I stood tall and faced them directly. I won't be thinking about marriage anymore. From now on, I'll live a happy life with my child, I declared with a smile. Kyle responded, "That's the right choice. You're incredibly strong, and you deserve all the happiness coming your way." His encouraging words gave me even more confidence. Now, my future is all about finding happiness with my child. This fresh start is a big step forward for us both.